Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome one and all. I am super grateful that you have joined me on this magical today. And today, I thought I would get into a concept that I briefly mentioned on Tuesday's episode, which is the music of the spheres. And I shouldn't say that I mentioned it, actually. It's a client that I had in session who mentioned it. But this concept is fascinating to me. And I thought I would read a little bit to you from The Secret of the Ages book by Manly P. Hall, where he has an entire chapter called The Music of the Spheres. I find the entire concept of math and music and sound and vibration and geometry and all of the things associated with this just fascinating. And who not to go to understand math but Pythagoras, right? And the fact that he has this theory called the music of the spheres, which is associated with the planets, is just fascinating. Like I said before, I don't have another word for it. But let's just get right into this. The music of the spheres. The most sublime but least known of all the Pythagorean speculations was that of sidereal harmonics. It was said that of all men, only Pythagoras heard the music of the spheres. Apparently, the Chaldeans were the first people to conceive of the heavenly bodies joining in a cosmic chant as they moved in a stately manner across the sky. Job describes a time when the stars of the morning sang together, and the Merchant of Venice, the author of the Shakespearean plays, writes, "There's not the smallest orb which thou behold'st, but in its motion like an angel sings." So little remains, however, of the Pythagorean system of celestial music that it is only possible to approximate his actual theory. Pythagoras conceived the universe to be an immense monochord, with its single string connected with its upper end to absolute spirit and its lower end to absolute matter. In other words, a cord stretched between heaven and earth. Counting inward from the circumference of the heavens, Pythagoras, according to some authorities, divided the universe into 9 parts, according to others, into 12 parts. The 12-fold system was as follows. The first division was called the Empyrean, or the sphere of fixed stars, and was the dwelling place of the immortals. The 2nd to 12th divisions were, in order, the spheres of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, and fire, air, water, and earth. This arrangement of the 7 planets, the Sun and Moon being regarded as planets in the old astronomy, is identical with the candlestick symbolism of the Jews, the sun in the center as the main stem with 3 planets on either side of it. The names given by the Pythagoreans to the various notes of the diatonic scale were, according to Macrobius, derived from an estimation of the velocity and magnitude of the planetary bodies. Each of these gigantic spheres, as it rushed endlessly through space, was believed to sound a certain tone caused by its continuous displacement of the ethereal diffusion. As these notes were a manifestation of divine order and motion, it must necessarily follow that they partook of the harmony of their own source. The assertion that the planets in their revolutions round the earth uttered certain sounds differing according to their respective magnitude, celerity, and local distance was commonly made by the Greeks. Thus, Saturn, the farthest planet, was said to give the gravest note, while the moon, which is the nearest, gave the sharpest. These sounds of the 7 planets and the sphere of the fixed stars, together with that above us, are the 9 muses, and their joint symphony is called mnemosyne. And here's what I think is fascinating about Pythagoras' theory about the monochord, is the tapestry room that clients often see when they go to the spirit side. There was a client that I had not too long ago that went to the tapestry room, and the way she described each thread, that it began in harmony and ended in harmony, and in the middle was some harmony and some disharmony, but always the ends, at the beginning and the end, was always harmony. And there was all these different tones and colors and vibrations throughout. And the way Pythagoras talks about the one end of the string being as above and the one end of the string so below, and that it is all connected, all one thing, all different parts of the same whole. And with this tapestry, each and every single thread is together, connected, creating this beautiful tapestry. And I don't know what kind of picture it is, or if it's any picture at all, or if it's a picture that you want to see when you look at it. But what it is beautiful light, just an array of colors and tones, just magnificent, beautiful geometry and color. And each and every single one of these threads is you. Each one of us has a thread in this tapestry, and we're all woven together, our as above and below parts. It's such a beautiful thing. So this chapter goes on to say, the Greek initiates also recognized a fundamental relationship between the individual heavens or spheres of the 7 planets and the 7 sacred vowels. The first heaven uttered the sound of the sacred vowel A, alpha. The second heaven, the sacred vowel E, epsilon. The third, H, eta. The fourth, I, iota. The fifth, O, omicron. The sixth, Y, upsilon. And the 7th heaven, the sacred vowel omega. When these 7 heavens sing together, they produce a perfect harmony which ascends at an everlasting praise to the throne of the Creator. Although not stated, it is probable that the planetary heavens are to be considered as ascending in Pythagorean order, beginning with the sphere of the moon, which would be the first heaven. Many early instruments had 7 strings, and it is generally conceded that Pythagoras was the one who added the 8th string to the lyre of Terpenter. The 7 strings were always related both to their correspondences in the human body and to the planets. The names of God were also conceived to be formed from the combination of the 7 planetary harmonies. The Egyptians confined their sacred songs to the 7 primary sounds, forbidding any others to be uttered in their temples. One of their hymns contained the following invocation: the 7 sounding tones praise thee, the great God, the ceaseless working Father of the whole universe. In another, the deity describes himself thus: I am the great indestructible lyre of the whole world, attuning the songs of the heavens. Lyre being Lyre, and meaning the instrument. The Pythagoreans believed that everything which existed had a voice, that all creatures were eternally singing the praise of the Creator. Man fails to hear these divine melodies because his soul is enmeshed in the illusion of material existence. When he liberates himself from the bondage of the lower world with its sense limitations, the music of the spheres will again be audible as it was in the Golden Age. Harmony recognizes harmony, and when the human soul regains its true estate, it will not only hear the celestial choir, but also join in it an everlasting anthem of praise to that eternal good controlling the infinite number of parts and conditions of being. The Greek mysteries included in their doctrines a magnificent concept of relationship existing between music and form. The elements of architecture, for example, were considered as comparable to musical notes and modes, or heading a musical counterpart. Consequently, when a building was erected in which a number of these elements were combined, the structure was then likened to a musical chord, which was harmonic only when it fully satisfied the mathematical requirements of harmonic intervals. The realization of this analogy between sound and form led Goethe to declare that architecture is crystallized music. In constructing their temples of initiation, the early priests frequently stated their superior knowledge of the principles underlying the phenomena known as vibration. A considerable part of the mystery rituals consisted of invocations and intonements, for which special sound chambers were constructed. A word whispered in one of these apartments was so intensified that the reverberations made the entire building sway and be filled with a deafening roar. The very wood and stone used in the erection of these sacred buildings eventually became so thoroughly permeated with the sound vibrations of the religious ceremonies that when struck, they would reproduce the same tones, thus repeatedly impressed into their substances by the rituals.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about a podcast that is focused on answering the big questions in life called Stories of Impact. Did you know that there are researchers out there working daily to discover scientific evidence about how you can flourish? Join Tavia Gilbert as she shares and connects with compelling stories all about the ongoing scientific exploration of how to live better, and shares key discoveries of research grantees from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. I listened to an episode with Deepak Chopra where he discusses how human flourishing is intimately tied into our ability to tap into the flow state, which really resonates with me. As you know, if you have read my book, I wholeheartedly believe in the importance of focusing our flow. So to continue improving your physical and mental health, tune into new episodes the first and third Tuesday of the month by subscribing and listening wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to check out storiesofimpact.org.
Every element in nature has its individual keynote. If these elements are combined in a composite structure, the result is a chord that, if sounded, will disintegrate the compound into its integral parts. Likewise, each individual has a keynote sound. If sounded, will destroy him. The allegory of the walls of Jericho, falling when the trumpets of Israel were sounded, is undoubtedly intended to set forth the arcane significance of individual keynote or vibration. Each and every single one of us absolutely has our own harmonic vibration. Each one of our chakras will resonate in a certain way, like the notes of a musical instrument. That, say you were tuning a guitar, your chakras are this way, that each and every chakra has its tone, its frequency that is tuned correctly, appropriately to the other ones, so that they sound in harmony with another. And when your instrument is tuned just so properly that you resonate in this beautiful harmony, just like a beautiful instrument would. And this is what they're talking about here. The 7 planets are in relation to our 7 chakras. So they go on to talk about the philosophy of color. Light, writes Edwin D. Babbitt, reveals the glories of the external world and yet is the most glorious of them all. It gives beauty, reveals beauty, and is itself most beautiful. It is the analyzer, the truth teller, and the exposer of shams, for it shows things as they are. Its infinite streams measure off the universe and flow into our telescopes from stars, which are quintillions of miles distant. On the other hand, it descends to objects inconceivably small and reveals through the microscope objects 50 millions of times less than can be seen by the naked eye. Like all other fine forces, its movement is wonderfully soft, yet penetrating and powerful. Without its vivifying influence, vegetable, animal, and human life must immediately perish from the earth, and general ruin take place. What shall do well, then, to consider this potential and beautiful principle of light and its component colors, for the more deeply we penetrate into its inner laws, the more will it present itself as a marvelous storehouse of power to vitalize, heal, refine, and delight mankind. Since light is the basic physical manifestation of life, bathing all creation in its radiance, it is highly important to realize, in part at least, the subtle nature of this divine substance. That which is called light is actually a rate of vibration causing certain reactions upon the optic nerve. Few realize how they are walled in by the limitations of the sense perceptions. Not only is there a great deal more to light than anyone has ever seen, but there are also unknown forms of light which no optical equipment will ever register. There are unnumbered colors which cannot be seen, as well as sounds which cannot be heard, odors which cannot be smelt, flavors which cannot be tasted, and substances which cannot be felt. Man is thus surrounded by a supersensible universe of which he knows nothing, because the centers of sense perception within himself have not been developed sufficiently to respond to the subtler rates of vibration of which that universe is composed. Now, I happen to think that we've come a long way since this book was written. I think this was written in the 70s, or maybe I'm wrong. It might have been earlier. Could have been the 40s. So look it up. I have no idea. But it was a long time ago, and we have come a very long way. We are getting more sensitive to these subtle things all around us, these very subtle senses that we all have. I love this point, though, that there are all of these colors and smells and tastes and sounds that we can't hear, and they're all around us, just like all of the dimensions that are all around us that we can't sense or perceive either. So very interesting thoughts. It's all around us, all of these things that we cannot see. Goes on to say, among both civilized and savage peoples, color has been accepted as a natural language in which to couch their religious and philosophical doctrines. This whole thing is like a tongue twister, by the way. The ancient city of Ecbatana, as described by Herodotus, its 7 walls colored according to the 7 planets, revealed the knowledge of this subject possessed by the Persian Magi. The famous ziggurat, or astronomical tower of the god Nebo at Borsippa, ascended in 7 great steps or stages, each step being painted in the key color of one of the planetary bodies. It is thus evident that the Babylonians were familiar with the concept of the spectrum in its relation to the 7 creative gods or powers. In India, one of the Mughal emperors caused a fountain to be made with 7 levels, the water pouring down the sides through equally specially arranged channels changed color as it descended, passing sequentially through all shades of the spectrum. In Tibet, color is employed by the native artist to express various moods. L. Augustine Waddell, writing of northern Buddhist art, notes that in Tibetan mythology, white and yellow complexions usually typify mild moods, while red, blue, and black belong to fierce forms, though sometimes light blue, as indicated in the sky, means merely celestial. Generally, the gods are pictured white, goblins red, and devils black, like their European relative. In the Pythagorean Tetractys, the supreme symbol of universal forces and processes, are set forth the theories of the Greeks concerning color in music. The first 3 dots represent the threefold white light, which is the Godhead containing potentially all sound and color. The remaining 7 dots are the colors of the spectrum and the notes of the musical scale. The colors and tones are the active creative powers which, emanating from the first cause, establish the universe. The 7 are divided into 2 groups, one containing 3 powers, and the other 4 are relationship also shown in the Tetractys. The higher group, that of 3, becomes the spiritual nature of the created universe. The lower group, that of 4, manifests as the irrational sphere or inferior world. In the mysteries, the 7 logi, or creative lords, are shown as streams of force issuing from the mouth of the Eternal One. This signifies the spectrum being extracted from the white light of the supreme deity. The 7 creators or fabricators of the inferior spheres were called by the Jews the Elohim. By the Egyptians, they were referred to as the builders, sometimes as the governors. They are depicted with great knives in their hands, with which they carved the universe from its primordial substance. Worship of the planets is based upon their acceptation as the cosmic embodiments of the 7 creative attributes of God. The lords of the planets were described as dwelling within the body of the sun, for the true nature of the sun, being analogous to the white light, contains the seeds of all the tone and color potencies which it manifests. There are numerous arbitrary arrangements setting forth the mutual relationships of the planets, the colors, and the musical notes. The most satisfactory system is that based upon the law of the octave. The sense of hearing has a much wider scope than that of sight, for whereas the ear can register from 9 to 11 octaves of sound, the eye is restricted to the cognition of but 7 fundamental tones, or color tones, or 1 tone short of that of the octave. Red, when posited as the lowest color tone in the scale of chromatics, thus corresponds to do, the first note of the musical scale. Continuing the analogy, orange responds to re, yellow to mi, green to fa, blue to so, indigo to la, and violet to ti. The 8th color tone necessary to complete the scale should be the higher octave of red, the first color tone. The accuracy of the above arrangement is attested by 2 striking facts. 1. The 3 fundamental notes of the musical scale, the first, the third, and the 5th, correspond with the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. The 7th and the least perfect note of the musical scale corresponds with purple, the least perfect tone of the color scale. How many of you just heard Queen lyrics in your head like I did? I can't help it. The first, the third, the 5th. I mean, how can you not? I know you hear it. This choir is singing in your head right now. All right, you guys. I think I've given you enough to chew on for today. This is a lot of really, really wonderful information. This is the fundamentals of our existence right here. And it's so beautiful how it all correlates, how it all fits together, how you can see similarities in each and every single one of these things. That's a lot to chew on for today. I love you all so much. I'm going to leave you with this song. This is Rising Appalachia, Harmonize. Until next time, I love you all.